Okay, just here to kind of amend some of our sander stuff that we talked about. And so we'll talk quickly about where the sandpaper is in the room. And then what I also want to show you is some of our hand sanding options that we have in here as well. So if we kind of take a look, in the first video, we had kind of mentioned that it was up in that front room, and that's now our cutoffs room. And so there's just a bunch of kind of leftover wood up there now. And our sanders have been moved back here into these cabinets. And so you can see right there, those kind of middle two cabinets are where our sanders are. And then right to the left of them, there's our stairs. And here is our sandpaper. And the big thing to notice here is these normal ones right here, 80, 120, 180, 220, right? All of these, it's just a normal paper-backed sandpaper. And then these two down here where it says hook and loop, if you don't know what hook and loop means, that basically just means Velcro. And if you look on the back of this sandpaper, we have a kind of a loose hook and loop pattern that works with Velcro. So on our palm sanders, right, the ones that we talk about in that video, you do not need Velcro. They just get held on by those clips. And so for those sanders, you only want the 80 through 120 over here. You do not want the hook and loop. That's for a different type of sander and different types of applications. And so don't use that hook and loop. It's expensive. Don't waste it. I will not be happy if we're just kind of using that and throwing it away. Stick with the paperback stuff. If these rolls run out, just let me know. I've got more. We can kind of go from there. And so now heading up our stairs here. And right now, I might come up with a better spot for this later, but right now it's just in this tub right here. We have some hand sanding options that I will show you guys here in a second. So as we head into talking about our hand sanding options, I thought it'd be a good idea just to kind of review and show you again how we tear a piece of this sandpaper off. And so I'm going to start with the 80 grit, and this would be if I was using a palm sander, right? So those handheld electric palm sander, the quarter sheet sanders, we simply kind of pull out how much sandpaper we need. There's a black marker line all the way down there. I push my finger to hold the saw blade down so that it doesn't move. And then I pull up on the sandpaper while holding it in place with my other hand. And we get the perfect size sheet that we need for our palm sanders, okay? All right, so now we've got our piece of sandpaper that we could have used on the power palm sanders. But I want to show you now what we have in here for hand sanding options, okay? And so the first one is these sanding blocks that look like this, okay? They've got a couple of features on them. They have the one side is kind of a concave side, and the other one is convex, right? And so you have kind of the rounded edge and then the interior rounded edge. The bottom is flat, and it's got this little thing in the middle here. And when this gets pressed in there, that's what holds the sandpaper in there. And so using that black line on the sandpaper dispenser, right, we can use, it actually works out absolutely perfect on these sanding blocks, okay? And so we wrap it around all of our edges, and then we take that middle wedge and it gets pressed in, and that holds the sandpaper in place. And now you've got a perfect hand sanding block, right? I can use this side if I have like an outside curve, and use this side if I've got an inside curve, either one of these edges, and the flat bottom depending on what I need. And so that's pretty nice to have. Easy to get the sandpaper for. So these again, these ones take the exact same size going to that black line on our sandpaper dispenser. And then you can use any grit still, and they just kind of clamp in there. It does not take the hook and loop. These ones are actually designed to use these 5-inch sanding disc pads that have the hook and loop on the back. But these are actually really hard to find that don't have any holes in them, these solid ones. And so what we have is we have those rolls of hook and loop back there. And so you could take the same size down to the black marker of the hook and loop sandpaper, rip a piece off, and then if you kind of put it in the center here and lifted it up there, that hook and loop would stick to our Velcro on the back of this, and you would have another sanding block, okay? And kind of the cool thing about these ones, okay, and I've got 3 of those. This is what it looks like with that 5-inch thing on it. It has all these different little rubber bumpers that can be replaced in the bottom. So if you had like a pointed spot you had to get into, if you had an interior rounded spot you had to get to, if you were doing something round where you just needed that, all of those can just get replaced on the bottom. So you pull that off and they just stick in there, and the sandpaper kind of helps hold them in there. And so then you've got a nice sanding block that does everything you need with the hook and loop. Right, and we got a few of these as options as well. All right. So far we've discussed this one that uses the non-hook and loop, the same ones that we use for our palm sanders. We've discussed these ones that does use hook and loop, and we still rip a piece off that's about the same size as what we use for our palm sanders. And then the last ones we have are these little foam ones. And here's a small 1-inch by 3.5. And I believe this is like 2 by 5 or something like that. And these are kind of hook and loop as well. And these ones actually come with a bunch of these already pre-cut hook and loops. So those are for the 1-inch ones. And all those are 120. And then the green ones that are also in here are 80 grit. And those work really nicely if you have any little small things that you got to get into. And we've got like 4 of those. And then for these other ones, we have a few of these, not very many, that are all pre-cut already. So if those are all gone and you actually just need to get some fresh sandpaper, you would go back to our rolls, the dispenser, and use the hook and loop stuff. So this is the normal paper backed, but you get a piece like this, you won't even need that size. But you see, then you can just kind of rip off exactly what you need, which is about 2 inches, and we could cut it down to size, and it would stick right on these ones as the hook and loop sanding blocks, okay? And so we've got a lot of options here that you can do if you just have some fine detail sanding that you need to do. Hook and loop, paperback, all those different options. We just want to make sure we're using the right stuff and not wasting this sandpaper. You do not need a brand new piece of sandpaper every time you sand. If it still has pretty sharp, pretty, distinct sandpaper, abrasive on it, then you can just keep using it, even though the color might change. You don't need a new piece of paper every single time. We actually want to get in the habit of reusing pieces until they're completely gone before we rip new stuff off the roll. Otherwise, we'll run out of it and not have any for the end of the year, okay? So that's where we're at with some hand sanding blocks and a little review of how to use the sandpaper dispenser and all that kind of good stuff. And that's all I got.